tie it into a visit to our Fair Isles in the UK. We have a conference in June, June 17th, 18th, where we're looking specifically at a lot of supply chain issues for the UK and how it connects to the market, to the rest of the supply chain. And of course, Martin and others from other British and European and global OEMs will be there. So get in the diary, hope to see you there as well. But what we're going to be turning next to is picking up, we're going to really be starting to dig into what I would call our deep dive on the resilience topic. And it's, I think, a word that as we talk through with numbers of speakers, we'll unpack a bit further and understand what we mean by it or what our speakers mean by it, because I appreciate that it means different things to different people. But in this session, we want to talk about, first of all, what tools, data, again, AI, can help us to be more resilient, but also what are the frameworks that we can construct in our supply chains, in our ecosystems to better monitor where we have risk and understand where we can either react faster or, in the best case, of course, be proactive and even predictive in that. And I think what you'll see, we have, again, a great selection of experts, leaders, who will help us to understand in their own organizations and with real cases how to do that. And my panel is waiting anxiously to join me here, so I'm going to introduce them. First up, very pleased that Zvonimir Zaya from Forvia Interiors can join us. Zvonimir is leading global supply chain management, and this topic and framework, thanks very much, is a key topic for him. So thank you for being with us, Zvonimir. Also pleased that Nicolas Schuck, who again is someone who knows very well how to turn risk into resilience, working with CNW. Nicolas, great to have you with us to share perspectives. Also pleased that Dominic Oertmann from Project 44, again, giving us great perspective on visibility, transparency, how do you really see and identify your risks, and last but not least, bringing another perspective from a significant career at OEM, particularly on the after-sales side. We'll talk more about that. So Michael Booker from another automotive OEM perspective. Pleased to have you all with us. Again, we're going to look into this resilience and risk topic in a bit more structured way. And we will, again, open up audience questions as well. I'd like to start, Zvonimir, with you. And I mentioned in my intro that as well as the data, visibility, transparency that we're going to unpack further, we want to talk about the framework where we can be, if not better reactive, maybe even predictive about where we can identify these. And I know this is an important topic for you in your organization. And can you give us a few key points and insights into how you're developing that framework at Forvia?
So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation, Christopher, and to be here on stage today. When it comes to your question about the framework or the resilience part, I do believe that the resilience is starting from inside out and not from outside in. So what does it mean? It means that on our side we have developed a framework for the supply chain that is that has 5 key elements inside. So it's starting with the strategy. It goes among the processes, the performance, digital technology, and the people in the organization. So all of that is part of our framework where we have created and described everything around. However, it is still, kind of holistic sometimes for the organization. So we translated that into something more tangible. We call it an operating model that we also frame on our side as supply chain excellence. So this means with the supply chain excellence, we are able to assess the performance and all the enablers in our network. So we have a network of around 60 manufacturing plants, so 60. It's quite a big network worldwide. But with this way of doing it, we are able to assess it consistently, in terms of performance and enablers. And this is for us also the foundation for the next step, which is basically to make first steps of risk assessment, risk management. I will comment on that later. But that's why I said it's more about inside out, because you have to start first on your side.
And before I go to the other panel, that inside out point is really interesting to me. And I think we also had some good examples in the order to delivery, where we create complexity perhaps as organizations, which we then have to deal with in supply chains and logistics. But what are for you, Zvonimir, some key examples in looking inside out, where you've perhaps identified areas to address to indeed better manage risk?
I mean, on the one hand, for sure, you want to improve yourself in the supply chain, what you can control, what you have the hands on. But let's be realistic, and I would like to phrase it like that. Maybe people will agree with me, but very often the issues that you're discovering in supply chain doesn't have the origin in supply chain. So we are dealing with other impacts coming from other areas, quality, could be some, people availability, production, whatever. So we have used also this assessment to build a frame to understand what are those so-called operation factors that have an impact on the supply chain from more the outside in. So it means we have now determined already kind of 7 operating factors. One is for sure the quality, but also when we look to supplies, we look also about stability of supplies when it comes to financials. But also our business is very much driven by new launches of products. Also this is a critical part. So all of that we have framed around our supply chain framework, and now we have a better visibility on the stability of the end-to-end supply chain, which we call stability and risk. So this is the next stage of assessing our supply chain more in advance to make sure that when there are potential disruptions coming, that we at least can prepare ourselves for that to respond better.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, I'd like to come to you next with a perspective, especially on the complex after-sales transport network that you've overseen, many depots, many suppliers. Did you or do you have a performance metric or matrix, if you like, that you've used to monitor the transport and then identify where you would see risk or inefficiency to try to address in advance?
For us, the topic resilience gets more and more important. If you look back 10 years ago, everything was in the flow, supplier performance, parts production, and so on. And in this time, our network reduced everything on just-in-time, just-in-sequence stock levels. And we, for example, with Volkswagen, we have 6,000 supplier, 30 master depots and 130 regional depots to deliver the parts to our dealers, 26,000, and all of them reduce the stock. And we have a high transparency in all our warehouses, but we don't have good transparency in the transport. And then we start with some Excel programming, with some Power BI and so on. And this gives us the trigger to look for a solution which is really real-time or nearly real-time, and which shows us our complete network.
And then that's probably a good segue to you, Dominik, in terms of working with automotive customers like Volkswagen and others on transport visibility. How do you see that this is information that can help your customers identify the internal inefficiencies, the inside-out perspective, for example, that Zvonimir has it enhanced, as well as obviously external disruptions and challenges?
Yeah, what we see across customers is that transport visibility can be basically a mirror of your internal processes efficiency, not just only on external inefficiencies, right? So what we find out oftentimes across customers is that once you have end-to-end transport visibility, you will start seeing that the inefficiency wasn't the carrier, it was your internal processes. For example, misalignment in production scheduling, disruptions in the lead time planning, wrong lead time planning. We see a lot of customers, for example, picking a lead time for the whole year, right? But there's seasonality on the lead time. You can pick the lead time from the factory to a master depot or to a distribution center very narrowly, depending on what carrier do you pick, right? What times do you want to be there, right? You can pick a lane with 2 transshipment ports. You can pick a direct line. It depends obviously on procurement and on allocation, right? But there are huge differences. And the key point I want to make here is basically that visibility doesn't bring value alone. You need to act and change your processes on the data that you get out of visibility, basically.
Well, it's a good point, and again, it goes back to how you then reflect back on your own processes. Nicholas, coming to you, and again, CNW is a company that is certainly not a stranger to managing inside disruption. as a premium freight provider. But are you working with customers to identify root causes, to try to learn better from each of these situations, and again, to build more of that sort of framework as Zvonimir refers to?
Yep. So most of the OEMs and tier one automotive suppliers are not budgeting for expedites, and therefore the cost is always much higher. So what I think what we're doing now is we're meeting with our customers, let's say on a monthly basis. We're showing them how much spend they've had on expedites for the month, and we're kind of looking at taking a deeper dive into each particular case, and maybe looking into, okay, how could we have improved and done better for the future? So is there an opportunity where they could have maybe gave us more time for us to plan better or for us to execute the shipment better? Because of course, time is money. So the more time we have to plan, the cheaper the price we can provide to our customers. So that's just one way we're kind of assessing and trying to help our customers budget and lower these costs for the expedites.
Dominic, maybe coming back to you, I mean, you talked about how transport visibility can be a mirror of the internal processes at organizations. Where are you finding examples where there are gaps in that information? I mean, Michael talked about starting with Excel and Power BI, right? And so, but where would you identify as some of the gaps that maybe customers in the audience may not realize that they even have when you start these projects?
Yeah. So we basically see a lot of gaps in the different planning cycles of transportation, right? Starting with the lead times, going back to your point on expedites, right? Sometimes you think that your lead time is the right lead time, right? But then you start realizing it's not enough and you don't have the visibility on the inventory in motion. So basically the starting point is also to understand the inventory in motion, right? Because when you see a container coming in 3 days with a truckload was full of important parts for production, right? And if you now start an expedite process, you will see the parts on the same time, right? And so it's really important to have this also order level visibility on the inventory in motion to really understand where are your goods and then basically plan with that.
So yeah, that's inventory in motion seems an important point. Nicholas, I wanted your perspective. You just mentioned before that most of your customers don't actually budget for the disruptions that you have to face. So where do you think, I mean, they can't predict every disruption, but what data or transport visibility gaps do you think they have which could help them better prepare for this?
Yeah, so going back to Dominic's point on kind of what their inventory level is or where the cargo currently is that they may need, I think the transparency and the visibility that our customers have can, if they have better transparency and visibility, they'll be able to make smarter decisions on these expedite costs and these expedited shipments. For example, there are many times where a customer may reach out to C&W and they'll say, hey, we need a charter or we need an NFO, next flight out, because maybe they lost the inventory in their warehouse, and then an hour later they say, okay, no, actually, we don't need this expedite because we found the inventory in our warehouse, or we found a supplier elsewhere that can supply us with these goods for a cheaper price. So I think this transparency and the visibility is very important for our customers to make certain decisions on expedites and managing their cost.
Thank you. I want to pick up on the inventory in motion topic and ask Zvonimir and Michael, again, sort of how Zvonimir, would that fit into your sort of framework, if you like? Like, is it an area, firstly, that you've identified as a gap? Does it help you then also to plan your supply chain differently, whether it's inventory, whether it's, expedites, etc.?
Well, actually, it's exactly a topic that we are, challenging with when you talk about inventories or transparency. So when it comes, in the end, the first part of, system or framework is to create this visibility, and indeed, it's something that we also want to work with, and we have to have, because in the end, when you have the visibility, you can start optimizing what you see. But if you don't have that visibility, then where do you start? So you are kind of blind. And when it comes to the data, I think also very important to mention is that in the end, sometimes we forget that, but the data or the availability of the data, the enabling of having the data for making decision is the most important thing. Otherwise, we are always striving to rather report something rather than working on the concrete actions.
Absolutely. Maybe Michael, coming to you, again, you said in the beginning, starting with the Power BI and the Excel,
Yep.
and then moving to need real-time visibility. Can you talk about what steps you took to integrate this? What system layers did you require in your after-sales transport network to gain this and best use it?
Yeah, honestly, we just want to implement a track and trace system, but what we got is a system with a high visibility, but also with a lot of additional tools and possibilities for analyzers to improve our supply network. And this helps a lot, Niklas said, to make smarter decisions. We are high transparency now, and we get a lot of additional features. We are now able to compare shipping companies. We see in real time where are the trucks and our customers as well. And many things we get with the system we didn't expect.
Yeah.
But there's also, we make a tender process, and there's also a big gap between the champions of these tools and some which just begin to start or ask us how it should run.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Dominic, we in a few sessions today, we've tried to understand more about the system layers, what tools and inputs should come. So I don't ask you to repeat that as such, but what, or either from what you've heard you would like to add to, or what are the key inputs that are really important, tools, system-wise, data-wise, to develop a single source of truth, to gain this sort of visibility that we're all aspiring to?
Yeah. I think it's a maternity journey, right? You need to start step by step. And we have this framework called Connect, See, Act, Automate. So first of all, you need to be connected to all the different data sources, right? To the carrier ecosystem, to road carriers. Then basically you want to gain insights into the end-to-end visibility with EDAs having a centralized view, single pane of view, but that you can also share and push in other systems. That's really important. And then you also need to make sense of the data, increase the data quality. And this is a little bit where the industry fell short a little bit, I would say, the last 2 years, and is now really picking up, because there are great ways how you now can increase data quality, and you need to actively manage data quality, right? You need to have tools in place to understand where something is broken. You need to understand where something is not trackable and why it's not trackable, and then you can act on it, right? And then the next 2 steps are the AI layer, right? So you need to understand, for example, if you have a disruptions, it needs to be mapped directly to your shipments, and then you want to have insights into how can you react, right? For example, a rolled container in a transshipment port, you want to maybe immediately rebook this container, right? And then already want to have a playbook, hey, go from A to B with this option, right? And those are your 2 options. And then we are coming to automate, right? When you find those repetitive processes where you don't need a human in the loop, you can automate those processes. And I think that's the key takeaway, is to actively manage data quality and then start acting on the data and then start automating.
Zvonimir, does that resonate? Is it a similar systematic step that you're looking to take with your teams as well?
I think when you talked about the single point of truth, then very often we used to think it's all about the technology, but indeed I would say it's more about the trust. So how do you build the trust? And so on our side, we have a clear data structure in place. When I say that, it's we have a data lake. We store the supply chain data there, which I think is much more advanced than what was there in the past. But also when it comes, what Dominic said about governance, this is another part that also has to sit with supply chain. Usually we're always looking to IT and other areas of doing that, but now it's also the supply chain people. So in our organization, we have, for example, one person that is even different skill set profile of person that is usually working on ontologies, building data models. Then you have also to work on the standardization, master data quality, consistency, all of that stuff. Always, so it's not, you will never reach maybe the 100%, but you have to constantly work on that. And then, the adoption is a success factor in the end, because we already heard this also today a couple of times. When the organization is starting to build Excels around, then this is not the real purpose. So that's what should be avoided.
Absolutely. Nicholas, from a logistics provider point of view, where have you tried to do similar? Have you also enhanced your own visibility to share with customers? Are you using data insights, AI tools to help provide more real-time information or predictions, even in an expedite scenario?
Yeah, so I think C&W over the past 5 to 10 years, we've put a very large investment and development into our technology and our customer-facing technology. So like we speak about transparency and visibility, so this technology is what the customers are seeing, and they have true visibility on where each of their shipments are, so they can make smarter decisions and plan their supply chain and their production accordingly. But also now, I think the last few years, the time has come where we're putting a large investment into AI as well to help our staff and our operational teams. So whether that be automating routing, so having routing that is automated, so our operators know, okay, you have a shipment from point A to point B, this is the fastest route for that shipment. We can also do it on a cost basis, so maybe this is a slower route, but it's a much cheaper service. And we can kind of play with that on our operations team and then give our customers real-time solutions, so they can kind of make the decision that they need to on a particular shipment. But also it's based on timing as well. I would say the AI is really helping us respond to our customers faster and provide solutions faster for them, because of course with automotive production and supply chain, timing is everything. So that's how I feel about that.
Dominic, now we've sort of talked about the systematic layers and aspects. So can you give us some examples of where you're using AI insights to support optimizing networks like for Volkswagen and others?
Yeah, I think the first layer, right, is mapping disruptions with AI, right, directly to your shipments. But then the second evolution of AI insights is then to use your data for scenario modeling, for disruption planning or what-if scenario planning, right? Dynamic lead time planning. And especially, I think it will become, currently it's more a one-time exercise, right? Okay, now we are planning for a disruption or a scenario that we will getting signals that the Panama Canal is lowering water, right? What are the implications of that? But I think it will evolve into a continuous effort and practice applying AI to scenario modeling. And I think that will be the next layer.
I think there's a scenario modeling that came up already this morning. We know that to be resilient, we need to be ready for many different possibilities with plans and action points. Michael, before we get a little bit more into some of how you execute on that, at any large organization like Volkswagen, we can see a tremendous value for tools like these, but there's also a need an ROI to be able to make an investment or convince the board, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about ways or what the most important criteria has been to build such an ROI in this case or for other visibility kind of approaches?
As you said, there's a cost pressure in the automotive sector is very high, industrial sector as well, I guess in the meantime in many of the sectors. What we have for calculation of an investment is very strictly ROI, This we have to keep in. And what we did during the tender period process, we discussed this after the pitch with the tenderer. What is the business case? And in the past, we were struggling by ourselves. What are the cost benefits for the implementation? You see more shipments and so on. Maybe you can reduce some costs for customer care because there are less calls, or you could better balance your stuff in the inbound area when you know what's receiving. And all these things come up when we really calculate together with the partners. We have a massive cost reduction in the stock in motion. We have reduced a lot the demurrage detention costs. We adapt also our chatteling calendar because now we ship the container out when the vessel is starting, and with that main costs we have a lot of savings. The ROI was good, and we keep it on. And we also have support from our partner regarding the analyzers, because they know much better than we how to handle all this data. Where are the weak points in our supply chain based on all these analyzers? And with that help, we were able to keep in the promises. And one feedback I received from the finance was after Global Logistic Manager Conference, our finance attend as well, and they said, okay, it's not only saving money, this invest brings also customer satisfaction. So we get both points.
Yeah. Important there that you could have that customer perspective, especially on the after sales side. So Vladimir, again, this question, you know, it's complicated, right? And there's not one answer how you build the ROI. But given the cost pressure and given some of the upfront costs that are necessary, what would be key criteria that you look for when you're implementing either a tool or a wider system for this?
I think, first of all, you have to really translate the values into business terms. Otherwise, you will not get the money. This is very important, and sometimes it's even failing at the start. So you have to really kind of simplify the value into what is this solution providing and what is the concrete business term that you're creating. And usually we used to take the cost saving with the ROI on certain years, but also when we, even in the last years, it was increasingly going up with the cash improvement as well. I think another field which also is quite interesting is the part of, of potential avoidance of cost for the future when it comes to risk reduction, for example. So all of that, I think, is one part that you have to put into your description. The other thing is also when it comes to implementation. Like usually, instead of going for a big scale implementation at the very starting point, you can do maybe a lighthouse, a pilot, and you can prove the validity, effectiveness of that. That will also underline this business case at the same way. And that's what we have been doing as well. And then we should not underestimate also the fact of the change management, the organizational buy-in. I mean, it's also a lot about storytelling. It's a lot about bringing the people on board to support that activity.
Absolutely. If we take what we're talking about here, the sort of lessons and approaches, and look a little bit towards the most recent crisis, or I mean, we can choose the Middle East. We can probably look at others already this year, whether again it was weather or strikes. Nicholas, what evidence are you seeing of some of these tools, processes actually starting to have a real impact and help? And is that, has it been measurable, if you like, with your customers?
Yep, so I think, I don't think we're ever going to be able to predict these disruptions like you brought up the Middle East, but also we had in North America, we had the aluminum crisis, which most OEMs know about. We also have the weather in Morocco, which is affecting the ferry schedules from Morocco to Europe. and therefore affecting the production for the OEMs and tier ones in Europe. So I don't think we'll ever be able to predict all of these different disruptions, but I think we are, C&W and us together in the industry, we're able to kind of plan for these disruptions better using these tools. And what I've seen is I think we're able to provide better solutions to the OEMs and tier one customers using the data, the transparency, as well as the AI. And again, it's all about timing. So I think the AI is really helping us improve our timing and how fast we can provide our solutions to our customers.
And Zvonimir, again, whether it's, if you don't want to use the exact current situation, you don't have to, but in general, do you see measurable improvements in facing these crises?
I would say yes. If I pick the point from Nicolas, when we look into disruption, I mean, we all have to be clear. I mean, disruptions, they will come, they are there. We will not be able to avoid them. But what we could do is we try to limit the impact and respond. And, you know, we heard this word a lot of times today, anticipation. So in our case, and this was a little bit underrepresented today, but we have been working on a solution that I presented also last year in November in Munich, for using AI simulation for removing the demand uncertainty, for example. That is still a topic that we heard also today in some comments, which is flying around, you know, the validity of forecast, the reality, the short-term, mid-term. So we worked on a concrete use case where we were using AI simulation to remove uncertainty and then to finally understand the impact of possible scenarios, driving our decisions. So in the end, we could reduce the inventories and the costs in our pilot plant. But in the same way, we didn't have any disruption on the service level to the customers and also no shortages on the material. So even though it's not that appealing topic always when we talk about, you know, can we forecast the weather or whatever kind of disruption, but I think this is still a point that is around and that we have been working on.
Absolutely. And Dominik and Michael, I wanted to maybe just pull one more example or understanding from the visibility point. If I understand correctly, this enables you to better predict or have an ETA, improvement in ETA accuracy, let's call it. And what kind of measurable impacts does that bring to your supply chain, whether it's in transport costs, inventory, customer delivery, etc.?
For our network, the most benefit is on the side, on the inbound side. We divide our network in different tracks, and we start with a track from us to our next level, to the wholesaler and other depots, and they have a big impact because they know exactly plus minus 30 minutes when the truck arrived. And they know how many trucks arrived because they give us the orders, but nobody knows the volume behind. So, and in some cases they got 4 trucks, in some days they get 6 trucks. So now they can adjust the planning in the inbound area. And it was really nice to see. It was like a Christmas gift for me. When we present this the first time on a conference, they were all totally happy, and they were very keen on that, getting this tool. So I can recommend that as well. We are now fixed on the track that we see our inbound process much better, because it's also difficult, as I mentioned. We have more sensitive supply network. We have back orders from supplier and so on. And if we see when the parts arrive, it will help a lot to avoid additional costs for air freights and so on.
Absolutely. So plenty of upstream effect.
And maybe to quickly add on that, right? So, and you can only reduce buffers, right, when you have correct ETAs. And today we heard the word ETA, I guess, 100 times. And, but we also need to think about how to measure the ETA, right? Is it explainable, right? Is it a dynamic ETA? How good is the quality of the ETA? 7 days out on an ocean journey, early journey, 30 days out, 2 hours out with a truck, right? Are you above 70%, right? Can you optimize then really the truck facilities in your yard, right? And I think that's really important to also measure ETA quality as well.
Absolutely. We're coming up to the end here, and I'm sure everyone can do with a coffee before we look to finish. But I want to close or ask quickly in like a sentence or so, closing thoughts from each of you really on basically, Zvonimir, what you've been talking about. Okay, what do you want to challenge either your team or your suppliers to do differently to help you be more resilient over the next year? What's one change, one area we should focus on as a kind of parting thought? I'll start with you, Zvonimir, and we'll finish with Michael.
I mean, we heard this already today a lot of times, even when OEMs was asked and then with all the partners. I think it's all about starting to collaborate in a certain way, and it's starting with exchanging data and data availability, which is still, let's say, a barrier, to have that part. But that's, I think, the crucial starting point to have this first. And then it can allow to really go into, I think I like this one, to go into strategic dialogues of improvement, when it comes to, could be shipments, what you mentioned, but also the way of, providing into our risk model, for example, some insights that can help us to anticipate risk better.
So definitely that open sharing, that maybe can be more automated, but then go into dialogue to really work together to make those decisions better. Nicholas?
I just think that for C&W, for us to provide solutions to our customers, we need to be ready for these disruptions. So, for example, we brought up the topic of Morocco. So C&W has an office in Morocco. We have 48 offices globally. So when these disruptions do come to the supply chain, we are able to provide a solution to our customers very quickly. And for instance, for the case where Morocco is, a lot of people were not able to get charters in and out because they did not have good relationships with the ground handling agents. So I think it's very important that the relationships that we build with our partners and having good partners and in strategic locations. And then also with the aluminum crisis in the Americas region, it started with the OEMs chartering almost Boeing 747s every single day full of aluminum coils. Now that the supply chain has stabilized a bit, they're now moving them on the ocean. So for us, it's having a portfolio of services to provide our customers with different solutions depending on where we are in the supply chain.
So being ready in the right place with the right assets and services and tools. Dominic?
Maybe I think we are in the agentic AI century now, and I would challenge you guys to start automating and optimizing. I see already that, especially in logistics, we're currently doing like 30,000 calls already a month, calling carriers, asking for ETAs, asking for license plates, already also negotiating spot prices. So I think the time is to act now to start applying AI use cases.
That's a very good point. What can you automate and start implementing that? Michael, closing thoughts?
Just do it. Find the right partner for your belongings, for your network, and you will see possibilities as we never expect.
Excellent. So again, I almost say like we spent a bit of a conference for Nike at points. Just do it. Don't wait. Get into the flow. I think it's a really good point. Thank you all for taking us through this. I really appreciate your insights here. Thank you very much to our panel.